To me, this is absolutely critical stuff in terms of Bush's mentality right after September 11th. And again, this is Senator Daschle writing in saying we never gave him the power to do phone taps inside the country. Now, brief excursus. Based on all of this stuff, the 9/11 research community has divided into a number of points of view. And I want to just briefly acquaint you with those. There is, of course, the official version, right? If you want that, right, you can have it. It's a tissue of lies. It's discredited. It's even more discredited now with Able Danger, because we know that there was vital information from government officials that they absolutely ignored, not historically relevant, they said. Now, there's also the official version with unanswered questions. I think Nafiz Ahmed's latest book. Now, also, I'm trying to be fair. It may look like I'm polemical, but I am trying to be fair. If people disagree, we can talk about it later. There is then the official version, and you deserve it because of imperialism, right? You imperialists, you get what you deserve. You had it coming. Damn you. Blowback, exactly.
So you here.
Uh-huh.
You the people, or you
the Americans, well, we'll take an example. I think Chomsky is this basically, Gore Vidal. I think the person who has done most to hurt the movement in the year 2005 is this guy Ward Churchill, who turns out to be a former weatherman. He came back from Vietnam after being in some kind of special forces. He knew explosives. He taught the weathermen how to build bombs, with the result that you saw over here in the early 70s when a brownstone blew up and the Mad Dog faction of the weathermen blew themselves up in that building. He was their teacher. You know what his line is? He says, the people who died were little Eichmanns. Now this is wrong. It's not true. It's also politically insane. And then he has the capper. He says, if you don't believe in the official version, you're a racist. Yeah, why? Because you're saying that Arabs are inferior and couldn't organize that whole complicated operation. And I'm not kidding. That's what he says. If you don't accept the official version, you're a racist. So I put him in for the Arlen Specter Award for the greatest imagination shown in dishing up ruling class lies. Ward Churchill. And a lot of academics have a weakness for him because they see him as fighting for academic freedom. I think it's a big mistake. Find somebody better than Ward Churchill. Then we have LIHOP, let it happen on purpose. And we'll see what the difference is. It implies that there really is Al-Qaeda, and that what the U.S. government did was to lower its guard, so to speak. The Cheney network helped it happen on purpose. And this has been ably argued by Mike Ruppert in his many books. And then we have Ian Henschel in that book that I mentioned. They call themselves LIHOP Forte. Now, are we going? Now, I said before, I believe in truth in labeling. I represent MyHop. This has made it happen on purpose. On this one, David Ray Griffin, of course, has an eminent place in the research with the new Pearl Harbor omissions and distortions. Every detailed question that he gets, he seems to argue in the direction of MyHop. But he is an agnostic as to what happened. He always says, I believe there was controlled demolition, but as to what happened in general, I don't know. So he is an agnostic on the overarching questions, unless that has changed more recently. Most of the Europeans are U.S. secret government MyHop from the word go. Mason, von Bülow, Wisniewski, Blondet of Italy, Hufschmidt in this country, I think, would fit that, and myself. There is also another version called Mossad. I called it Mossad MyHop. The people who endorse this will say, Americans would never do that to other Americans, therefore some foreign force had to do it, therefore the Mossad. I think this is wrong. I think this is absurd, and it cannot be maintained by the evidence. You could probably make a better case for MI6 MyHop, that the British secret intelligence had a bigger role, because they demonstrably do have a role, which for the Mossad is much, much harder to prove. That's von Bülow, former Deputy Defense Minister of Germany. That's his book. Next, please. That's Mason. The first book in the world, I think, is his, in September of '01. That's Wisniewski. I have to make a special appeal. Wisniewski came to Brussels and had a leaflet that he's looking for a publisher. Any publishers here, there's a great book to put out. It's from 2003, but in many ways it is the most timely book of all, in some ways at least. This is Blondet for the Italians, right? Here's the Italian readers. This is 11th of September, coup d'etat in the United States. Maurizio Blondet. The author is a right-of-center Catholic, interestingly enough. Now, there's a whole bunch of evidence. I won't go through this. Here's what we'll do. Because of the time consideration, there's no point in trying to read all these things for you, right? You can look at it. If you really want this show, I'm sure that the managers will be able to deliver it, probably for some kind of a conventional service fee or whatever it is. So I can leave it with them and then you can get it, so you don't have to sit here taking notes. There's a lot of evidence that points to LIHOP. Now the difference is, if you go with LIHOP, your point of view is that Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, Atta, and so forth, that they exist independently and do have the physical technical capability to produce the results observed. The most extreme defense of this I've heard is that, yes, Atta is a double agent, yes, they're double agents, but what they did was they were running drugs for the U.S. government. They were actually doing drug running, and they got tired of being bossed around by the U.S. government, so they decided to get together and pull one on their employers by going to terrorism, which was not part of the CIA plan. I think it's a weak entry, but you will hear it. Now, MIHOP asserts that the patsies accused by the government do not have the physical technical capability, and that government officials are the perpetrators, that the terrorism comes from the government. And now I want to try to show you how. Here's MIHOP evidence, right? The Global Hawk, I think, still controlled demolition. Silverstein saying to pull it. In the last couple of days, Silverstein comes out saying, oh, I meant time to get the firemen out of the building. Problem with that is there were no firemen in that building. They had been pulled out long before, as far as anybody knows. Problems and anomalies with the flying objects. No commercial aircraft at the Pentagon. Shanksville impossible. Angel is next. Okay? All of that would point to MIHOP. However, notice that MIHOP includes LIHOP. Sometimes people come forward, I don't know, Sybil Edmonds. Some people say, don't listen to her, she's LIHOP. Yeah, wait, she's telling what she knows. What she sees is she happens to work in an FBI bureau whose job is LIHOP. If she worked someplace else, she might tell you something that looked more like MIHOP. But there's a division of labor, in other words, right? There's a division of labor, so some government agencies do things that are consistent with LIHOP. Now, I don't want to spend time on this, but there's a red herring in all of this stuff, which is peak oil. I have to say briefly that I think this is a fraud propagated by the oil cartel itself. I know it's controversial. I remember the fake oil crisis of 1973, 1979 too. The 1973 one, they were all frauds. There never was an introduction of supply. It was all done in the trading pits over here, the COMEX or the 9X or whatever they call it. Lord Victor Rothschild in those days worked for Royal Dutch Shell Research. They had this other guy, King Hubbard, working at the U.S. branch. And they brought it out at the Bilderberger meeting in Saltsjöbaden, Sweden in the spring of 1973 that there was going to be an oil crisis and that they could all get rich. They could have a speculative orgy in the trading pits and get the price up 400%. Later on they did the same thing with Khomeini. And the main person now supposedly predicting peak oil is somebody who has made these predictions several times in the past. So he seems to be somehow the boy who cried wolf. Let's leave it behind. Let's just remember, though, that when you're dealing with oil, you're dealing with an extremely cartelized system with these companies now dominating it, and that none other than Alan Greenspan, in a speech in Tokyo last October, essentially said, yeah, price of oil is going to keep going up. Sounds like peak oil. Sounds like Greenspan endorses peak oil. And I think that is the main issue. I think we're in a world financial crisis with $300 trillion in derivatives Should we blame the world population or should we blame the financiers? I blame the financiers. They should pay. They're responsible, not the average person. There's also the other question, since we're talking about the attack on Iran. On the 20th of March, Iran will open